Right now I am making this video as a response to some comments that were made in a recent video. That recent video in question, I compare these two knives and their ability to hold an edge cutting through twisted sisal rope. And one of the criticisms that I received is that I didn't do the test fairly. And the reason why it wasn't fair was, well, according to Mr. Kevin Allman, there is a lot of reasons why it wasn't fair. Now, the reasons why it wasn't fair, the first reason he listed was because the knives were sharpened at a different angle. Okay, it's an interesting thought. Ignores a lot of realities about what makes a knife's edge last long. He goes on to say that it's also about how thick the knife is. Because my knife was thicker, that's why it performed better. Goes on to say that it would turn out different if the other knife was thicker. And then he goes on to say that it would be like comparing a cambric to a Barlow folder, a kukri to a bird knife, katana to a neck knife. Says he stands behind what he said. Well, I think you should. Then the truth can hit you harder. That last comment just felt like I was watching a car spin out in the mud a little bit with all those metaphors being thrown and then compare them in a rope cutting contest. Is that what you're saying? Because yeah, it could go either way depending on the factors that can make any knife cut longer. Heat treatment and steel type. And while the edge angle can make a difference, it doesn't cover certain discrepancies. And rather than spend an eternity trying to explain all these things to you, Mr. Kevin Allman, I thought I would just make this video and take the first thing you said really seriously, because I got bad news. The thickness of the back of a blade doesn't determine how long the edge lasts. But with you stating that if the knives were sharpened the same way, that mine wouldn't win. All right. It's on, buddy. Went out to my shop, sharpened this knife at the exact same angle that I sharpened my knives. And we're going to test Mr. Allman's theory. And going to find out if I'm right or wrong. So this is 50 passes at the different edge angle. Now, my friend, you said that if the Benchmade was put at the same angle as my knife, it would blow it out of the water, that it would beat it. Now, instead of spending all that time explaining to you where you're wrong, it is slowed down to where it is taking about half the hair at 50 passes. If I push really hard, it still leaves a bare patch where it's been pushed through the most rope at 50. My CPM 154 cm made it to 250. See, here's what you don't understand. When it comes to these higher end crucible steels, some of them, when they get steeper, do better with slicing. The purpose of the comparison is I have multiple friends who own Benchmade s90v knives, and they've testified about how they can go all the way through an elk and they never have to resharpen it. My video is about how, with my knives, it can go further than this one would. So, remember, this is not to insult you or to make you feel dumb intentionally, but instead of arguing with you endlessly in the comments, I figured I would just show you that you don't quite know what you're talking about, and that's not a crime because we all learn at different rates, and it's a good thing to learn. And I hope that you take away from this that it's more than just edge angle. It's also heat treatment. It's also thickness behind the edge. It's the steel choice and the care that goes into its preparation, and it's eventually making it into a knife. This knife, I thought it would do better than what I did, or do better than the factory edge with my edge, and it actually scored slightly better with its factory edge. Might push it a little further just to see what's going to happen, but yeah, thank you for your comments, thank you for your opinions, but, well, I'd rather let my video do the talking the rest of the way. We're going to push a few more passes. That's 60 passes. And this is the portion of the blade that took the most time in the rope, and it is no longer, it's not even at half at this point in the area that took the most abuse. I mean, if you look closely, you'll see there's a little hair down here and a little hair up here, but in the area that actually did the most work into the rope, it is no longer shaving sharp. Is it nail biting sharp? Yeah, you can still bite a nail. You can still work with that, very much so in the field. But yep, apparently I can't give the Benchmade saddle mount and skinner the same sharpening job the people at the factory did. I haven't worked in this steel, I'm not familiar with this steel. All I could do is put it through the same process and let the chips fall where they may. In this video, I thought going into it I was still going to be right, but if I wasn't going to be right, I was going to be okay with that and try to learn from it. But from what I was told about my knives and about my test, there was too many things not taken into account that I felt pretty confident that I was going to be right about this. And turns out I was. I'm very humble, can't you tell? Here are my final thoughts on the video. Now, it's possible that this knife is pretty much performed the same as the factory edge, but I do feel like the factory did do a little bit better with this than I did. I have very limited experience with s90v. In other words, this is my experience with s90v and that's it. But from what I've read, s90v is one of the steels that at really steep angles does perform really well. I'm going to make a couple knives out of it here pretty soon and do tests on it myself, see what I can do with a piece of s90v. I think this is a phenomenal knife. I think it's a knife that you can get your money's worth out of. Always the staple that I like to compare things to is the Buck 119. The Buck 119 in the rope test only made through 7 inches of rope before it stopped cutting, where this didn't completely stop until somewhere in between. Let's see here, so I have to convert the 3/4 inches into the 1 inch, and that's, let's see here, so this made it, before it stopped shaving entirely, to somewhere around 70 inches of rope. And so that's about 10 times the edge retention for less than 4 times the price. So in the end, I feel like if you're serious about hunting, this is a good knife to buy, which is why I want to compare mine to it, because I think it's a great product and I'm out to prove myself. To address Kevin Allman one last time, thank you for your comments. I hope that I interpreted your comments correctly for this video, and I feel like I did, But yeah, edge angle is one of many factors that go into edge retention. Things more important than the angle of the edge is the style of sharpening. Bigger than that is going to be your heat treatment, and bigger than that is going to be your steel choice. The last two are pretty close together because I don't know who heat treats Benchmade steel, and if I was going to bet my money on the one thing that determined my doing better, I would bet my money on the heat treatment. And yeah, that's the video. I'm very happy with the results, and I came into this feeling like I was going to be right, but thought I'd make a video to share with everybody.